What's going on, everybody? In today's video I'm going to show you how I coded the VWAP baseline indicator. I'm doing this step by step to show you maybe how you can create your own indicators. That's going to be a test video of me coding indicators and teaching how to code. So we see how it goes and how you guys like it. And I'd say let's get started right away with coding this VWAP baseline indicator. This video is going to be a video where we use a pretty basic indicator that's already available with open source code on TradingView, and we modify it a little bit to our liking. So you, for example, could use a RSI or a stochastic RSI or a MACD and play around with it a little bit. But let's start with the VWAP. So first of all, what you want to do is you add the VWAP indicator to your TradingView chart, and you think about what do you want to modify or do with this indicator. So for example, for the VWAP here, we are going to make it look more like sort of a baseline, so a very thin, narrow line, but not just a basic thin line like the VWAP is right now with those bigger deviations. We want to modify the VWAP, so for example, if price is above the VWAP baseline band is going to be green. If the price is crossing below the VWAP baseline, we are going to see a red baseline color. We also want to set up alerts and maybe some candle coloring. Alright, that's everything we are covering in this video. I'd say get right started with it. So the first step is always going to be to add the indicator you want to modify on your chart, onto your chart. You click on this two curly brackets, which is the source code. So you click on this one, and now we see this little window popping up here at the bottom, the Pine editor. So right here, the source code is protected now. You have now, that's a new feature TradingView recently updated. I'm super excited about it. This little window where you can simply scroll through the whole source code, for example, to move quicker to a specific section. So for example, this source code only has 72 lines, but imagine you have a indicator that's very complex like FinALGO or SCALPER Pro, and you have multiple hundreds, if not sometimes even 1,000 lines of code. It would be super hard to scroll through it by hand, and now you finally have the ability to just simply scroll through it here. That's a super nice, awesome feature. But what we are going to do here is we are going to click those three little circles called More and click on Make a Script Copy. Now we are going to call it VWAP baseline test. Click on save, and now it's already changed. So now we have our code. We can remove this VWAP indicator up here and click on add to the chart. Alright, so now we have the VWAP test indicator, the one we are now able to modify on our chart. We have the source code open, and now we get started modifying the source code. So now if you have a look at the PineScript source code of the VWAP indicator, you see that at the top of it, you usually see a // with a add version, and sometimes it could be 3, 4, and 5. So for example, if you want to mix different indicators, you always have to make sure that the source code of each specific indicator aligns with the other source code. So I would make sure that you update those every time you combine indicators, so they all match up with version 5. And how you can do this is by clicking on here, and if it's, for example, version 4, I can't do that right now, but let's assume this would be version 4. You could click on here, and somewhere in here there's a little notification popping up to tell you upgrade this indicator to version 5. And it's as simple as that. You don't have to know anything about coding. You only have to click this button and the whole source code updates itself. So the next important part is that TradingView scripts are always built like this. So we have our version input up here, and then we either have a indicator or a strategy at the top. And most of the time you're gonna find the input settings. So for example, if you can change a length, or if you can change, like here for example in the VWAP, to hide the VWAP on a daily chart or above, your anchor period, your source of the VWAP, your band multipliers, all this here is usually followed right after indicator or strategy has been named. So here we have all the variables. where we, for example, say show band, input, true, title, then we give it a title, we give it a group. This would be the standard deviation band settings. And if we click on here, we see standard deviation band settings, and they're all grouped together. So we have standard deviation multiplier 1. Yes, that's right here. Standard deviation multiplier 2. That's right here. And standard deviation multiplier 3. That's right here. And you see show band 3 is deactivated with false here, and only the first one is active. We also have the offset, the source, and the anchor period, and if we want to hide it on a daily chart or above. We are simply going to remove those two bands because we are only going to need one band. And you can also use two backslashes and you can comment something. So you, for example, could name this the input section. So we are going to name this the input section quickly. So that's the input section, and below that is the whole VWAP calculation code. VWAP calculation code. Simple. So now we have structured it a little bit. And let's say, for example, you'd like to modify an RSI or a different indicator. Usually you don't change something that has something to do with the calculation. Really focus on those input things here. Those are the ones you really want to modify. And also to get the baselines that are happening, instead of a 1.0 standard deviation multiplier, we are simply going to set a default 0.1. And we call this here in the title input, we give it the name of baseline width. And we are going to, that has no title, we leave this at baseline width, and we are changing this to VWAP baseline settings. Let me remove the capitals here. VWAP baseline settings, and we are going to do the same here. VWAP baseline settings. And now if we click on save, we see we get an error, we cannot compile the script. And now let's scroll down here and we see all the errors. All those error lines, they are marked with a curly or wavy red line below it. And so basically what it is, we saw at the top we removed the upper band value 2 and 3. So we have to remove all the areas where the lower and upper band value has been used again. So we are going to delete all this. That's upper band value 2 and 3. We can delete this without any worries. And we are going to delete those plots at the bottom. So for example, with plots and fills, that's where you plot all the data you, for example, calculate up here on your chart. So we don't want to see upper band 2 and upper band 3 and the lower band as well. We are going to delete this and click on save again. Now it's processing the script. Let me close the tab and pull this down a little bit. And now we see we already have this baseline idea here on our chart. Very cool. We can, for example, now check our settings and we see we only have the baseline width here now since we modified the title. And let's continue straight away with our second modification. So what we wanted to do is to create a baseline that's changing the color of itself, basically if price is closing above or below the baseline. So how we are going to do that now that we've successfully created the baseline? I completely forgot to change the name and the short title of the indicator. So what we are going to do is we are going to call this my VWAP baseline indicator. And we can call the short title VWAP baseline. Call it my VWAP baseline because it's going to be your first indicator that you create. So my VWAP baseline indicator, we click on save here again, and now we see this little title change. But now back to how we can figure out the color changing property of the baseline that we want to create. And in my opinion, the easiest way to do this is that the chances are very high that someone already did this on TradingView, maybe using a different indicator like a EMA that's changing its color. So we can try the simple approach of, for example, looking for a moving average colored EMA SMA. And the important thing is that you have access to the source code. So we want to click on this indicator and see if it does roughly what we want it to do. Yeah, we see it's changing its color, so we can open this source code and we see that it's a very short script, and it's also perhaps an old version. So there's not even, that was created 2015, so it's read only anyway. But all we want to see is, okay, he is figuring out the color problem by giving it certain conditions. And my color, he's looking, so if the candles are closing, if the candle is closing above this EMA or SMA or whatever you are selecting with this indicator, if it's above, that's what he is mentioning with up here, up. If this is above the baseline, we basically want to see a green baseline. And then we're using this semicolon, and if we are below it, that's mentioned with down here. Down is if it's smaller than before. We want to see a red EMA. If not, if green and red is out of the question, if that's not the scenario right now, we want to see blue. And then we just are going to plot out, which is basically the EMA calculation right up here, and the EMA plot question mark. That is basically just asking, do we actually want to show it on the chart? And only if this one is set to true, we are going to plot the EMA. And yeah, for the color input, we are going to select my color, which is basically this little line of code where we can, where the code is basically selecting by itself if we are bullish, bearish, or neutral, basically. All right, so I hope I explained that well. If not, if you still have any questions on how to do this a little bit trickier part, feel free to join us on Discord and send me a message about it. But so basically we got the idea now, and now we are modifying this in our my VWAP baseline indicator code. So we click back on source code to open up our little window. So now that we know what we have to do, first of all, we have to create inputs. For example, I called it here the bull color input, so the bullish color of the VWAP that we want to see. And we're simply going to use input color for that. We're going to give it the default value of color.line. And I can show you actually how simple that is if I remove that. So we would start writing, now that we have the bullish color, we would want to create the bear color. And you see with the new Pine script update, you see that you already get suggestions. So we want to see bear color, and we want to see an equal sign, and we're going to type in input. And now you get all different sorts of input opportunities or different possibilities you can use. And we want to select color. And now it already tells you, okay, for input color, we are going to need the default value, which is basically going to be the color. We need a title because it's an input. In the indicator settings, we are going to see this input and we have to give it a title. And we can add it to a certain group, for example, the color settings group. And for example, a little tooltip, which is usually that little information button right next to the specific indicator setting that can contain a little bit of information, like really valuable information for the user of this indicator. So let's continue. We are going to give it a default value and give it the color dot red. So we can go down here, select color dot red. Now we are going to give it I just type in the T and it already tells me, or it already knows that I want to type in title. So now we are going to use this and give it the title of bearish color. And we are going to add it to a group as well. It already selects group for me. And now we're going to use those ones and color settings. You just have to make sure if you add them to a specific group that it is the same group, spelled the same way. And now we have the bull and bear color input. So if I click now onto save, the script is saving, it's updating on our chart. And if I click here on the settings, now we have those two color inputs. Pretty awesome. So now that we finished our input section, we now have to create the conditions for, we basically have to tell our indicator when are we bullish and when are we considered bearish. So the way we do that is we create a bull condition. That's just a variable name. You can give this any name. You could call it bullish condition, whatsoever, green color condition, doesn't matter. You just have to declare it as one thing. And basically what we want to do then is if the close of the current candle is larger than the VWAP value that is being calculated in the VWAP calculation, then we are in a bullish condition. Same for the opposite direction. If the close is smaller than the VWAP value, we are in a bearish condition. So the next step from here would now to create our little color condition exactly like we saw it in the colored EMA SMA script, which would be as simple as that. So we have the VWAP color, and if we have a bullish condition, so we are asking the script, if the bullish condition is true with this little question mark here, we want to basically have the VWAP color obtain the bull color. And if you remember the bull color, we declared it up here. This is the bullish color, which is the green color right here. So if we go back down, so basically what we are asking it right now, if we are in a bullish condition, use the bullish candle color. If we're not in a bullish condition, just use the bearish color. As simple as that. And that's how we can continue. So if we go down here to the plot area, so basically this area where we are deciding what is being plotted on the chart. So that is the show lines etc on the chart plots area. Just give it a little name so you understand it better as well. So basically what we want to do now here is we want to remove this color input here and simply replace it with VWAP color. We are going to do the same thing here. We are going to remove the color input here and we are going to call it VWAP color, because the VWAP color is stored in here, and this one is depending if we are in a bullish condition, which means the close is larger than the current VWAP value, we are going to use the bullish color. And if the close is not larger than the VWAP value, we are going to use the bearish color automatically. So let's continue doing that. Let's change this to VWAP color, and also with that last one here. This one is the fill. So basically what we created here is the upper band, the lower band of the baseline, and now we are filling those two bands. So basically what you do is you fill, for example, two plots, two horizontal lines. So what we do here is we fill the space between the upper band 1 and the lower band 1, which is being plotted here. We give it a title, and now we are also giving it the color. But instead of just giving it the color of green, we also want it to be adaptive to our bullish or bearish condition. We are going to type in here VWAP color. And as simple as that, now we can click on save in the top right corner. And we see our EMA baseline, and it's changing color now, depending if we are above or below the VWAP. The color fill is already working as well. It's just with the transparency of 95. If I go back down here, you will see that we are using color.new. And in this color.new variable we have created, or the syntax, basically shows you color.new. So afterwards you're selecting the color, and after that you're giving it a specific transparency. So let's say we want to make this a little bit more visible. We are going to give it a transparency of 50. We click on save again. We pull it down and let's see what's happening. It's loading on our chart, and now we see the baseline. So now we created the color changing property of the VWAP baseline indicator. So now, after finishing the plot section and the VWAP coloring, we are going to focus on the alert section. So we are starting off the alert section off with a little logic condition when we actually want to receive the alerts. So for example, I created this little variable here, the bull cross. It's a local variable, and basically what I attach to this variable if the bullish cross of price with the VWAP. So basically what we are telling the script is if we are crossing over, if the candle close is crossing over the VWAP value, which is represented by the VWAP line, we want to receive an alert. And if we want to do the same thing for the bearish condition, we are gonna call it bearish cross equals sign, and we are going to type TA dot, and then we can already go down here in the suggestions and look for cross under, because now we want to see the closing price of the candle to cross under the VWAP value, and only then we want to receive the alert. So now we are going to write close, separated by a comma. So but here it also tells you the TA cross under. The source 1 series is defined as having crossed under source 2, and source 2 would here be the VWAP value again. So now we defined the logic of our alert system, and all we now have to do is to create a alert condition right here. So now we already see the alert condition consists of 3 variables, which would be the actual condition, the title, and the message you want the alert to display. So let's continue. So we know, first of all, in here, we have to write in the condition. The condition for our bullish alert would here be the bull cross condition, the one we defined up here. Basically, every time if we get a crossover of the closing price with the VWAP value. The next one would be the title. So we are going to give it a title, and we are calling it bullish crossover. And now we can also give it a we can also give it a little message, and in this message we can write price is crossing VWAP value bullish. And now we can do the exact same thing for the short condition. We are going to write alert condition again. Alert condition, this one here. We are going to write this time the bearish cross. We are separating it with a comma. We are going to give it the title of bearish crossover. And then we are going to just copy this message here, make it a little bit quicker, Command C, separate by a comma, and Command V, price is crossing the VWAP value, not bullish anymore, it's crossing it bearish. Now if we save that here, everything seems to be working. We can close this. And now if we click on add alert to my VWAP, we see here we can now select between the bearish and the bullish crossover condition. If we select this, we see the message prices crossing the VWAP value bullish. That's all you have to do to create alerts or to add alerts to any existing indicator. Pretty simple, isn't it? And as simple as that, we modified the basic volume weighted average price indicator and turn it into a baseline that's adaptively changing colors and is able to send you alerts, so you don't have to spend 24 hours in front of the chart just to make sure to not miss the awesome trend color change, for example. So basically all we did is we removed 2 standard deviation multiplier bands here from the baseline input section. We added this little coloring system with the bullish and bearish color input. And further down, we didn't modify anything about how the VWAP calculation is done in the script. We only added the color conditions here, which would be the bullish color condition or the bearish color condition, base if we close or above or below the VWAP value. And we basically save our, and then all we did is we created this little VWAP color question. If it's bullish, we want to use bull color. If it's not bullish, we want to use the bearish color. And we basically store all this here in this variable. So if we now get asked again, what color do we want to plot on our chart, we can simply refer to the VWAP color, which is asking this question. And depending on the outcome of that question, if we are in a bullish or bearish condition, it's automatically changing the colors. And afterwards, we now finish the alert section with the bullish and the bearish cross, creating those two alert conditions. And yeah, I think we are all done with the VWAP baseline indicator. Yeah, and now we modified the basic volume weighted average price indicator into the my VWAP baseline indicator, where we now have the sense of a little baseline that's being hovered around the VWAP, because usually the VWAP acts as support and resistance, where price is being considered as at a fair value, but the VWAP line is not going to be a solid wall. So that's why I had the idea to add a little baseline around that to make it a little bit thicker. So yeah, and we see how well it works. We touched that here and boom, we had an opening gap down till here. Same here, we continued back rallying to where? To the VWAP baseline and got rejected again. And look where we are right now on the Apple 5-minute Nasdaq chart. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you have more questions, you can simply ask me in the comment section or join our Discord server.